All right, let's jump right in. We all think of our brain as the big boss, right? The ultimate command center calling all the shots. But what if I told you that a small butterfly-shaped gland in your neck is secretly pulling the strings? Today, we're going to talk about the thyroid gland and its powerful and honestly often overlooked influence on, well, everything, from your mood all the way to your memory.
Have you ever had one of those days where you've got this brain fog that you just can't shake, or a mood that's in the gutter for no good reason? Yeah, it's easy to blame it on a bad night's sleep or, a stressful week at work. But the real answer might be a lot deeper. It could be coming from this delicate hormonal conversation that's happening inside your body as we speak.
So there's actually a whole field of science dedicated to this. It's called neuroendocrinology, and it's really all about that intricate two-way street between your brain, your nervous system, and your hormone system. It's this constant chatter back and forth. And today, well, we're going to eavesdrop on that exact conversation.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to meet the brain's chemical messengers. Then, we'll see how these hormones literally build your brain. After that, we'll look at how they regulate your mood and mind, what happens when the whole system gets disrupted, and then we'll wrap up with why all of this really, really matters. All right, first up, the brain's chemical messengers. Let's get an introduction to these crucial thyroid hormones. So, at the heart of this whole story are these thyroid hormones. Just think of them as these powerful little messengers sent out on a mission. They travel all through your body, and their job is basically to knock on the door of every single cell and give it instructions. And one of the most important places they deliver these messages, you guessed it, the brain. Okay, moving on to how these hormones build your brain. And this is really wild because we're not just talking about day-to-day operations here. The thyroid's job starts way, way back. I'm talking before we're even born. It's like the unseen architect of your mind. And just look at this timeline. The whole process starts incredibly early. When a baby's in the fetal stage, its brain completely relies on the mother's thyroid hormones to get that initial wiring done. Then, after birth, the baby's own thyroid kicks in and takes over, handling all that crucial maturation. And get this, it's not a temporary gig. This job of maintaining our brain health, it lasts for our entire lives. So what does this construction work actually look like? Well, think of thyroid hormones as the project manager on a construction site with a very important checklist. They're in charge of myelination, which is basically just insulating all the nerve fibers so signals can fire off super fast. They oversee neurogenesis, which is literally creating brand new neurons. Then they handle neuronal migration, which is like guiding those new neurons to exactly where they need to go in the brain. And maybe the most important job of all, synaptogenesis. They help form the actual connections between the neurons. That's the foundation of everything we learn and remember. Okay, so we've seen how these hormones build the brain from scratch. Now let's shift gears and talk about how they run it, day in and day out. This is where it gets really personal because this is about how these hormones shape your daily experience. And this comparison really says it all, doesn't it? It's like night and day. On one side, you've got a brain with balanced thyroid function, you feel good, your mood is stable, your thinking is sharp. But on the other side, when the brain isn't getting enough of those hormones, a state called hypothyroidism, you see the consequences. Depressive symptoms, cognitive problems, anxiety, emotional issues. The connection is so direct, it's impossible to ignore. But here's what's really fascinating and kind of scary. You could go get a blood test, and it could come back totally normal. It might say your thyroid levels are fine, but your brain could still be starved for those hormones. This idea of a localized shortage just in the brain is a total game changer, right? It means a huge problem could be flying completely under the radar of standard tests. And look, this isn't just some theory. This stuff shows up in the real world, in doctors' offices. There are now documented links between thyroid issues and so many neuropsychiatric conditions. We're talking major depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, even treatment-resistant depression. It's even connected to cognitive symptoms in Parkinson's disease. The connection is so significant, it's being looked at as a potential factor in suicide risk. That's how serious this is. So if this balance is so incredibly important, the next logical question is, what can mess it up? Because as it turns out, this whole system is actually pretty fragile and can be disrupted by a whole host of things. So what are the big disruptors? Well, they're things that are probably pretty familiar to all of us. We're talking stress, our diet, our sleep patterns, and even our environment. Let's dig into a few of these a little more. Let's start with stress, because this is a big one. When you're stressed out, your body pumps out the stress hormone, cortisol. And what researchers have found is that cortisol can basically act like a roadblock. It gets in the way and physically blocks the command signals from your brain to your thyroid. It just cuts the lines of communication.
And it's not just about signals, it's also about timing. Your body has this internal 24-hour clock, right? Your circadian rhythm. And that clock tells your body when to release certain hormones. So when you do things that mess with that clock, like intermittent fasting or just having a terrible sleep schedule, you throw the whole system out of whack. Hormones start getting released at the wrong time, and it causes this cascade of disruptions.
Okay, but how do these hormones even get into the brain in the first place? I mean, the brain is a fortress, right? It has the blood-brain barrier. Well, they need a special key, a gatekeeper protein called the MCT8 transporter. This is the guy who literally grabs the hormone from your blood and carries it across that barrier. And this is so critical because if that transporter isn't working right, it doesn't matter how much hormone you have floating around in your blood, it's just not getting in.
All right, we've gone through a ton of information, so let's pull it all together. Why does any of this actually matter for you and your health?
So let's just recap this whole journey one more time. Step 1, the hormone is made by the thyroid gland. Step 2, it travels through your bloodstream. Step 3, it has to get across the blood-brain barrier using that MCT8 gatekeeper we just talked about. And finally, step 4, it acts on your brain cells to manage your mood and your thinking. You can see how a problem at any one of these steps can throw the whole thing off.
And if there's one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. Your mental health and your endocrine, your hormonal health, they aren't separate things. Not at all. They are deeply, fundamentally intertwined. You really can't talk about one without talking about the other. And this is having huge, real-world consequences. It's not just a cool science fact. The link is so strong now that when a patient has depression that just isn't responding to the usual treatments, doctors are now starting to look at their thyroid function as a potential cause. That is a massive shift in how we think about mental health.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? As we learn more and more about this incredible connection, does it still make sense to treat mental health over here and hormone health over there as if they're completely separate? Or should a hormone panel be a standard part of every single mental health checkup? It's something to think about, and it could totally change the future of how we take care of our minds.